You're looking for what? Deep spiritual insights, ancient wisdom, right? Would your first thought be, let me check how a Tesla works? Probably not. But what if the very logic behind a self-driving car held a profound secret about the nature of enlightenment? That's the really unexpected connection we're going to explore today.
So yeah, we're going to unpack a truly unique framework, an analogy that connects two worlds that seem like they couldn't be further apart: cutting-edge automotive tech and the ancient inner path of Dhyana yoga. It's a jarring combination for sure. And you know what? That's entirely the point.
You see, the author of this piece, Sundar Rajan, seems to have chosen this metaphor specifically to get our attention, to almost force us to look at these ancient spiritual ideas through a completely modern and maybe even startling new lens.
And to really get how radical this is, you have to understand the context. This whole idea was presented as an offering on Guru Purnima. That's August 21st, 2025. Now, this is a day that's traditionally filled with devotional acts, worship, chanting, flowers. But this offering, it was a blueprint for contemplation. The article even says its goal is to jolt you awake. That tells you right away this isn't your typical Sunday satsang material.
And this brings us right to the heart of the analogy, the core equation. A self-driving Tesla, one with lifetime charging and full self-driving, is presented as being equivalent to the spiritual journey of a Dhyana Yogin. I mean, it's a really bold claim, putting an ancient spiritual state right next to commercial software and a battery perk.
Okay, so before we go any further, it's absolutely crucial that we understand this key term. Dhyana isn't just, trying to quiet your mind for a few minutes. It refers to a very specific stage of deep, effortless contemplation. The mind is settled, and you don't need to constantly work to keep it there. And the most important part? It implies a state of spiritual certainty.
All right, now for the other side of the equation. To really grasp this metaphor, we've got to understand the two key features of the Tesla that make this whole thing work.
These two features are really the pillars of the entire analogy. You've got full self-driving, or FSD, and you've got lifetime charging. One gives you guaranteed navigation, and the other gives you perpetual energy.
So, what exactly is full self-driving? Well, basically, once you set the destination, the car just drives itself. The article gives this fantastic example. Imagine you're in Chennai, and you just tell the car, take me to Marina Beach. And through all that organized chaos of bikes, buses, and auto rickshaws, the car navigates it all, perfectly. You're no longer the driver. You're just a passenger. The key takeaway is the certainty of arrival, because all that human error and doubt, it's just removed from the equation.
Then there's the second piece of the puzzle, lifetime charging. For anyone who's not familiar, this was a feature where the owner had free, unlimited access to the company's charging network. Essentially, the energy problem was permanently solved. Think of it like a prepaid phone SIM with infinite credit, or as the article puts it, like getting free petrol forever, just with electricity. The crucial idea here is a perpetual, non-diminishing power source.
Okay, so we've got a car that knows exactly where it's going, and it has infinite fuel. How in the world does Sundar Rajan bridge this technology to the path of the Dhyana Yogi?
Well, here is the direct mapping. Lifetime charging, that endless source of energy, represents the Guru's grace, or Kripa. And full self-driving, that guaranteed destination, represents the ultimate goal that has been implanted by the Guru.
Let's unpack that first part. Grace is the fuel. It's this constant, unending spiritual energy that makes sure you never stall out on your journey. But the article adds this fascinating, very traditional twist. It suggests that this guaranteed access, this lifetime charge of grace, is maybe earned by previous good karma. It gives karma a really practical, almost mechanical function.
And now for the second half. FSD represents the ultimate goal. And you have to notice the really powerful word used here, implanted. The Guru in this analogy isn't just vaguely pointing you toward enlightenment. No, they are plugging in the precise spiritual coordinates and engaging the autopilot. The doubt about whether you'll ultimately arrive, it's just gone. There's this one phrase from the article that just captures the radical assurance being offered here so perfectly. It's using the language of mechanical inevitability to describe what has always been seen as a journey of faith and effort. It completely shifts the dynamic from hoping you'll get there to knowing you will.
So this brings us to a really critical question. If the car is driving itself and the fuel is guaranteed, well, doesn't that make the spiritual path a little too easy? What is left for the seeker, for the individual to actually do?
And the answer is incredibly nuanced. The effort doesn't vanish, it radically shifts. You move away from the effort of driving, that's the moment-to-moment struggle of navigating the path and fighting off doubt. Your new, and maybe even more intense job becomes vehicle maintenance. In other words, ensuring your own consciousness is fit to receive and sustain this automatic guidance.
So what does this spiritual vehicle maintenance actually look like in practice? Well, the analogy extends just beautifully to the car's own systems of perception.
The article describes these as our inner mirrors of perception. Think of them like the cameras and sensors on a real self-driving car. If those sensors are covered in mud or cracked, the whole system fails, right? Well, spiritually, these sensors are our core ethical qualities. Qualities like satya, or truthfulness, and ahimsa, non-violence. If your perception is skewed by untruthfulness, the spiritual autopilot just can't function properly.
Which leaves us with a final thought, really a question to contemplate for ourselves. If the destination and the fuel can be guaranteed, then the entire focus of our effort shifts to our own internal readiness. So, the question becomes, what inner mirrors of perception might you need to clean or adjust before your own spiritual autopilot could safely engage?
It's important to remember that this is just the foundational framework. The article makes it very clear that this is just the first post in a whole series. The details of how grace is obtained or how a goal is implanted by a guru, those are set to be unfolded later. For now, we're just left with a really compelling start to a very modern spiritual roadmap.